Get ready for IELTS listening. Hi there. Tutorial is about language skills. The second part is about exam skills. If you want to score a 7 or above, you need to be proficient, competent in both of these disciplines. Perhaps more so with exam skills. I've heard of native English speakers failing the IELTS exam, especially the writing, but sometimes the other disciplines as well. And the reason is because they have a serious lack of exam skills. Now, what I see with students preparing for the IELTS, like non-native English speakers, I see they are overly biased on preparing for the exam skills when really they should be working on the language skills. Anyway, let's jump straight into this. Now, before I jump into this, before I jump into this, it's worth considering, depending on how soon the exam is, will determine which tip you're going to use or which strategy you're going to adopt into your learning, into your IELTS preparation. Halfway through as well, I'll tell you a story about a student, it's quite funny, regarding his listening skills. Anyway, let's jump straight into this. I'm going to start first with the language skills. If you've got solid language skills, that's the best foundation. If you've got a really good ability with the English language, obviously, this is the best foundation on which to do or which to improve your exam skills. However, if you've got a shaky foundation with your language skills, with, for example, with your listening, then no matter how many exam skills you learn, no matter how many tips you learn, it's still going to be below par. It's going to be much more difficult to improve. So anyway, let's jump into this. Now, as I said before, depending on how soon your exam is, will determine which strategy you're going to adopt. The first strategy that I want to share with you is listen to a range of accents. Now, you probably understand me quite easily because I vocalize and I speak relatively clear. Before, when I was living in the UK and I lived in Manchester, I remember the first time I went to Australia, even the Australians had difficulty understanding me, especially certain words. I quickly discovered that they don't say not. They don't use not, and especially the way I was pronouncing it, it's just another word for zero, but they don't use it in Australia. I was talking once on the phone with the telephone service, and she's like, what are you on about? What are you on about? But anyway, so get used to a range of accents. Try and listen to some Scottish accents, American accents, Irish accents, Welsh accents, if you want to have a laugh. Sorry. But try and listen to lots of different accents to train your ears. And a good way to do this is to do it in person, face to face. Of course, it's not always possible, so next best thing, jump online and you'll be able to find the resources there. Next one, listen with earphones. When we listen with earphones, it's going to stimulate the auditory nerves, which means it's going to be much more effective to help you learn and just to make you remember as well. I don't know all the theory, but I know that a pronunciation expert told me this. And from personal experience learning another language, I found it to be much more effective listening with headphones, like the earphones, the ones that go in, rather than just listening, watching the screen, just listening from afar. So that's the next one. The third one, put your entire life in English. So as soon as you wake up, you flick on the radio, or even better, you just wake up to the radio in English. And you can do this, if you do this with enough if you do this enough times, it just becomes a habit, and you don't even realize that you're listening to English. And now this is the ideal state to be, when you're not even conscious that you're listening to a foreign language. It's just floating into your brain and you're understanding it without actively having to decode and decipher. So this is why it's so important to develop these skills for the exam, because then when you're in the exam, you're not having to focus on understanding the words. You're more focused on understanding the task that's in front of you, and you can assign more resources in your brain to determine the information rather than understand the actual words. Anyway, so we want to put our life into English, and the best way to do this is to, with the earphones as well, of course, is to get hold of authentic native English material. So what do I mean by this? I mean, you should find podcasts, audiobooks, radio stations, things like this that are actually native English speakers talking. And by authentic, I mean that they're talking at native English speaker speed. I speak nowadays. I speak slightly slower than a normal person from Britain, but after a week or so of being back home with my family in Manchester, I soon start speaking faster, and my accent comes back. And then when I come back, when I leave England again and I start talking to other people, it goes back to how it was the first time I went to Australia. Nobody understands me and I have to slow it down. But anyway, what I'm saying is that you need to listen to material, authentic material, like I said, podcasts, audiobooks, and just get used to listening to it, to decoding it. And most importantly, listen to something that you enjoy. Now, I know that a lot of students, my students in the past, what they used to do would be listen to IELTS exam after exam after exam after exam. And the brain would switch off after 10 minutes because they'd just be bored. And this is why I said, look, find something that you really enjoy. So if you really love cricket, listen to a podcast about cricket, and you'll stay like hooked for the whole duration of the podcast or of the program. And this is perfect because you're going to be actively engaged, building those language skills, building that solid foundation that we've talked about before. And most likely, you're going to be there for longer. So instead of 10 minutes of concentrating, listening to the exam, and then switching off and just going thinking about what you're going to have for lunch, you're going to be there for 40 minutes glued, so to speak, listening. So next tip is to transcribe. YouTube is perfect for this because you can download the transcription after, but you watch or you listen and you write down everything that you hear. This will not only improve your writing abilities, your spelling abilities, your hearing abilities, but you also develop an important exam skill, which is the ability to write and listen at the same time or simultaneously. So this is why it's really important. If you can do, 20 minutes or an hour a week or 20 minutes a day, you decide. And by the way, I just remembered a very important tip is that if you can do this daily, if you can get into the habit of doing it, rather than relying on your own self-discipline, willpower, you'll need those to get it started. But if you can develop the habit, then you're much likely to stay with it for a longer period of time. And that's when it becomes very, very valuable. This is what I was referring to before, when you don't even realize you're doing it. It's just habit. It's automatic. This is what you want to be aiming for, especially even if you want to keep your English skills after the exam, which I obviously recommend you do, but develop the habits now and they'll stick. Now, let's go into exam skills. Now, you heard me before saying maybe for you, listen to the exam a proper IELTS listening exam isn't the best. But this depends on how soon your exam is. If you've got your exam in the next 20 days, then IELTS practice exams, the listening, are going to be useful for you, because with it being so soon, it's highly unlikely that you're going to wander. But if you've got your exam in 3 months' time, then practice on material that you enjoy, as I said. So listen to practice exams, but don't just sit there on the bus listening. You want to be actively listening, and this means sitting down in an assigned hour, sitting down at the table, listen to the IELTS exam, pen and paper, and doing an actual practice test. And don't just do practice test after practice test after practice test. Do about 2 or 3, and then determine where you're making the mistakes. And then just focus on that part of the exam. So if it's labeling a diagram, or if it's true, false, not given, whatever, if it's one of those sections, just focus on that section specifically until you master that skill, and then move on to the other ones. And by the way, when you're doing this, you'll realize that at the end of the test, it's generally for the students aiming for like so you might want to bear that in mind if you're going just for a 7. So next one, when we are listening to these exams, you need to be aware that during a conversation, the speaker or speakers, they can switch their answer. So for example, they might say, yes, Friday's an excellent idea. Let's go to the fair on Friday morning. And then you write, the answer, they are going to the fair on Friday morning. But then later in the conversation, they'll be like, actually, Friday morning for the fair is not a good idea. How about Wednesday? Yeah, that's good. Or maybe the day before, that's even better. So what they'll do is they'll maybe go from Friday to Wednesday, and then contradict themselves, and then they possibly might not even say the actual day. It might be Tuesday. They might just say, how about 2 days before? Or how about a day before? So it's up to you to have the ability to follow the conversation and know that if they say it's 2 days before, that they're referring to Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever it would be. Okay? So this is one of the specific exam skills that you need to develop in order to get a 7 or above. Now, then the final tip is learn how to predict the answers. Okay, so if you can see that, I don't know, maybe it looks as though, like I said before, that they're going to be talking about an event or something like that, then just be sort of like ready or half expecting data about events, like maybe the prepositions related to the events at the weekend, on Monday, at 3:00, and just get ready and sort of like keep an ear out or just pay attention to those specific terms, and then you're more likely to spot them when they are spoken in the exam. Okay, so that's me, almost finished now. I'll just tell you one funny story about a student that he was in the speaking exam, and this student, he was a little bit despondent. He was like a little bit away with the fairies, as we say, or la la land. He was just he didn't always manage to pay attention all of the time. Just his mind would wander. Anyway, he sat there at the exam and was doing the exam, and then afterwards he comes and I said, how was it, Roberto? And he was just like, it was a bit strange. And I was like, why? And he said, well, the examiner said to me, she said, are you even listening to me? And I was like, oh my word. And then Roberto said, he said, yeah, she said, are you even listening to me? And then Roberto said, he said, I thought that was such a strange way to start a conversation. So obviously she'd been talking to him, And he had no idea. He was just away with the clouds. And then he snapped out of it when she said, "Are you even listening to me?" Anyway, I won't tell you what score he got. It's pretty obvious. But so yeah, this is why it's really important to develop your listening skills. And also solid, decent, advanced listening skills will help you in the other disciplines as well. It'll help you with the speaking. So you'll be able to respond with the right answer when the examiner asks you that question. Okay, so if you need any more help with your IELTS exam, go to IELTSPodcast.com. And if you've watched this far, I'd really appreciate it if you just liked the video. That would be a massive help. Okay, have a great weekend, have a great week, and all the best with your IELTS preparation. Thank you. Okay, yeah, maybe I'll start doing a timetable for live. It's a good idea. I'm gonna have a think about it. Hopefully, every morning, 10:30, Monday to Friday, 10:30 European CET time. Okay. Okay, multiple choice for the listening. I'll put that on my list, and I'll try and get a video together for you in the next week. Okay, Ahmed? All right. Have a great day, you guys, and all the best with your IELTS preparation.